Hello students, so this is In Custody by Anita Desai, a very famous novelist, Indian American novelist, and she had some interesting theme in her novels, and the theme is mainly her personal. She loves Urdu language, she also loves Urdu language, so this novel is also based on Urdu language. So here the slideshow, you just watch it. First of all, I would like to highlight the text with some of the important points. So these are the points you have to prepare, you have to understand these points to understand the text properly. Number one, post-partisan text. That is, Anita Desai had based her text on post-partition era in India. After the partition, many things had struggled for existence, and one of the major important thing is the Urdu language. Actually, the Urdu language was originated in India in the Mughal period, but after the Mughal period, British came, they brought their new language, English, and when the freedom fighting is going on, the British gone, but after the British departed from India, Hindi came to the front foot, and Urdu language just limited in some areas. The partition also took place there. After the partition, Pakistan was built, and Urdu language mainly visited to Pakistan with this partition. But what about the India? In India, in some portion, in some areas, in some persons, there were Urdu language. Irrespective of Hindu or Muslims, the persons who were taught in their early childhood in this language, they loved it. Anita Desai in herself was one of that conditions. She knew this language, and so in this novel she brought a character that is Devan, and Devan is just like that type of character who was a Hindu person, but his father was a great learner of Urdu, a great teacher, and he knew the Urdu language. Through him, Devan also knew this language, and not only he knew this language, he loved this language. Urdu is the passion for Devan. So this background is taken here as post-partisan text regarding language and regarding also the society, Hindu-Muslim society, the previous society, their town, villages, and all these things you find here. Another important topic here is life and livelihood. I have pointed out this particular caption to give you information that life and livelihood refers various type of things. Actually, our thinking is one, our love is one, but reality is different. That is life and livelihood. Devan loves Urdu language, his passion is for Urdu, but to survive his life, he has taken a job in Hindi language, which he does not like. So he has to meet this situation, he has to fight the reality, and he has to exist in this reality. So for existence, we can get rid of our love, and we have to take which we do not like. So this is the theme also you find in the character of Devan. So his wife Sarola is pregnant. At that time he did not have money. He is forced to take a job in a lecturership in Hindi language, although he does not like this language. His passions and his loves is only for Urdu. Another important caption I have noted here, that is frustrated quest for idealism. A very interesting topic here you find through the character of Devan. When Devan is offered by Murad, his one of the friend, that he can take an interview with Noor Sahajanbadi, the living legend of Urdu poetry. Still he is living. What is his condition? He has to know that, and if Deven can do it, it will be a great job for Deven. And when he learned about this information, when Deven found this proposal, he became so much energetic, enthusiast, that he can meet his real hero, that is Noor Sahajanbadi, whose poetry is his life, whose poetry is the passion for Deven. He had learned his poetry from his early childhood through his father, but he cannot find this type of poetry in recent time, because Urdu language is dying and no poet is coming to protect this type of poetic aspirations, which already you can find in the poetry of Noor Sahajanbadi. So there is a quest for idealism, that is his journey. Journey is his passion. He want to visit these persons, and he thinks it will be a great journey for him. He wears his new clothes. He thinks better. He thinks there will be great things. He imagines various types of things. The time, the moment when he meet this Noor Sahajanbadi and this idealism. But when idealism is meet, idealism cannot be found in reality, and when idealism, the quest for idealism is made, that quest must be a frustrated quest. In another text, wherever there is a quest for idealism, that quest must be frustrated. Here also you find Deven's quest for idealism. That means to visit Noor's house, to visit and have an interview with Noor is a frustrated quest, because that place is filthy, untidy. He does not like the places. It's a crowdy, overcrowded with a drunkard. There is dancing, drinking. There is nothing scholastic thinking there. There is nothing idealism he found in the house of Noor. And on the other hand, Noor is old, aged. He cannot walk properly without help. And he also does not find any quiet place for poetry. So there is a frustration for Deven. But when he understood that this is the condition, this frustration, this condition of Noor Sahajanbadi is the condition of the present Urdu. This is a symbolic thing which is presented in the text. The text also presents cultural imperialism, that is the new modern Urdu coming, and new modern language, that is Hindi, comes and it takes over on Urdu, and Urdu cannot survive in the hands of Hindi. So Hindi is progressing and Urdu is slowly dying. So this imperialism, regarding cultural imperialism, you find in India, that is the post-partition era. Before partition, there is the gorgeous, tremendous era of Urdu, and the society was a highly different thing. There is Hindu and Muslims also, but the Islamic culture, the Urdu culture of Mughal was dominated at that time. But now, after the partition, Pakistan was built, and some portions which remained in Urdu language, which cannot survive properly, which is struggling for existence. So this is a cultural imperialism you also find here. Pain for lost past, another important point I have made regarding the character of Deven. Deven is painful because he always thought that the Urdu is dying. And how can he just preserve the language? It's a tremendous effort by Deven to preserve the Urdu language, whether he can do it or not. And if he cannot, he will be a very painful person. So he can desperately attempt to preserve this language. So this is also refers to the title of the text also. Another important thing, that is the desperate struggle to preserve something endangered, something going to be extinct, something passionate. Just it is also discussed a desperate struggle of Deven you find here to preserve something endangered, that is endangered here refers to the language Urdu is going to be extinct language. If nobody can come here, if the literature is no longer read, if the department of the Urdu will not be innovated properly, in various colleges, in the college of Devan also you can find only one lecturer of Urdu, whereas in Hindi department there are many lecturers. There is also modern equipment. The Hindi department is innovated with modern things. It is decorated, but Urdu language, there is hardly you find lecturer, hardly you find reader, hardly you find students. So there is only one lecturer in the Devan college. So Urdu language is an endangered language in this perspective. So Devan has desperately struggling to preserve this endangered language, because this language is his passion. He has learnt it from his early childhood. A cross-cultural Indian society you find here is a very tremendous thing. You find Anita Desai is in custody, where Devan, a Hindu man, is trying to preserve the Urdu language, which is mainly put aside as Muslim. But language has no religion here. Language is a cultural identity. So this cultural identity can be adopted by various persons belonging to that culture, to that area, because language is also an area-oriented thing. So Devan has brought up in a society at that time in his childhood where Urdu was a gorgeous language and the Urdu poetry was a gorgeous poetry. But now, after partition, this gorgeousness of the Urdu language has gone. Now the society is dominated by the Hindi language and Hindi literature. So a man from Hindi background, a professor from Hindi is trying to preserve the Urdu. There is a cross-cultural tendency you find in this text also. The text is highly symbolic. Every aspect, the description of the Mirpur is symbolic. The character of Noor Sahajanwadi is highly symbolic in respect of language and Noor. The condition of Urdu is the same as the condition of Noor. So Noor's conditions symbolize the condition of the Urdu. Another thing, that is the condition of Urdu is just is a very soft condition, because it is now in the hand of a Hindi lecturer. Although he loved it, but he is a Hindi lecturer. How can he preserve this language? So the future of Urdu language is the question. So entire theme is highly symbolic. So the ending of the text is also in a question, because the custody of Urdu language in a question marks. So you can find these things in this text also. In the next point, you have to prepare these notes: post-colonialism, feminism, search for an identity, alienation, title in custody, symbolism, miserable condition of Urdu language, male and female characters. All these things you find here. All these points are very much highlighted in this text. Regarding post-colonialism, you know that it's a great topic, so we cannot sorry we cannot discuss it properly throughout this video, because it will be a long video then. So we try to take another video. I try to make another video regarding the post-colonialism and in custody. Feminism was also like that. So this also needs a separate video. There is search for an identity, alienation, title in custody, symbolism, miserable condition of Urdu language. All these you find. Regarding search for an identity, many things here we have to discuss. The entire character of Deven is highly important, because he is searching his own identity throughout the novel. If we study properly the psychological pangs in the mind of Devan, then we find that he is not happy with his own job as a Hindi language teacher, and so his job is not enjoyed by him. On the other hand, his understanding with his wife is not very good there, also we find, because he has a special love for beauty, for special love for Urdu poetry, its own rhythm, its pronunciation, its musicality, uh, its ideology, everything he loved very much. He had special love for that Urdu poetry, that Urdu language which he had learned in his early stage, but he is forced to take a job for earning money, and this force he is forced this forcing to support his family uh, is likened by him. So on the one hand he has to suffer his own job, on the other hand he has his own likings, his own desire, his own aspirations. And throughout the novel we find that he want to find his identity as a poet, as a poem lover, as a Urdu lover. So through this is a very important characteristics we find here in Devan's character. Another important thing here, alienation effect regarding Devan's character also we find here. This alienation that is we find in epic theater and very famous of Battle Breast. But here in this novel, we have a certain theme of alienation regarding Devan and and his ideal poet Noor. At the first hand he loves Noor very much, and throughout the novel we have seen that he has a special respect for Noor. But what his imagination about Noor and what Noor is actually in present is a different thing, which they will understand later. Uh, at first, when he wants to visit Noor, this going to visit Noor is a quest for his romantic aspirations. He thinks that he's a real hero. He will get him very soon. He will be a great grandeur. He's a man. There will be a great mansion, great grandeur, great ideology, great natural surroundings will be there, and he will be in a very comfortable state. His real poet, he will find him. But when he reached that place, he found the place is very filthy. It is a very dirty and and entire surrounding is very crowdy, totally what we have find that is one type of place where no such romanticism, no such ideology for poetry could be found. So what his beliefs of finding Noor and what he actually gets him, there is an alienation regarding that theme. So this also we have to evaluate in this text also. The title in custody is highly important because the main theme of the novel is the lost language, lost poetry, poetic grandeur, that is Urdu poetic grandeur. Now it is in a lost way, it is in extinct, it is going to be extinct, but who is there to preserve it? Now, if we find the symbolic reference of the title, we find that Deven, as a Hindi teacher in a Hindi surrounding, is forced to take the custody of Urdu poetry. This is the present condition of Urdu. The Urdu people, they are very careless about the Urduism of poetry. they are drunkard, they are not, they can speak Urdu, they can tell some poetry, can listen to some poetry, but that type of poetry are very very filthy, very very physical, physicalizations of Urdu poetry now we find in present situation. But Deben's ideology of poetry is highly spiritual, highly romantic, highly very interesting. So there we find that now the entire Urdu is in the hand of Deben. So this is the title which we have to discuss in detail. Just I give you some clues here. Symbolism, regarding symbolism, the entire novel is highly symbolic. The setting of Mirpur, the condition of Noor Sahajanbad is very symbolic. What Urdu language and Noor's condition, just a symbolic reference we find here. And even in this slide, so I have quoted one thing where you find that Noor told that regarding Urdu poetry, that there is no Urdu language, so where is the Urdu poetry? It is finished, it is dead, it is just a corpse like him waiting for buried. So condition of Noor is just like that. Noor himself becomes a corpse. He cannot move without help. He cannot have that grandeur. He is just lying. He is going to be dying. Just he is waiting to be buried. Now, Urdu language, Urdu poetry is just like this. Entire symbolic reference regarding Noor's conditions and the Urdu condition is highly important here. There is another important symbolism we find here regarding Deben's Deben's journey. When he started his journey, just he is symbolizing that he is going to be uplifted. But after that, when in reality, when he faced the problem, he found that reality is different. So the ideology and the reality is highly contrasting here. There also symbolic reference here we find also. Mirpurs, the setting of the Mirpurs, Hindu society, Muslim society, all are symbolically presented. Another important symbolism we find at the end of the novel, when the professor of Urdu poetry is selling his house, and in that house a modern construction will be built. That means the going away of Urduism and coming a new thinking, new modernity, new language, which will be in place of Urdu. So Urdu will be replaced very soon. That is symbolically referred here. Lastly, there are also the symbolism regarding the belief of Devens in the custody, the Urdu poetry now in the custody of Deven. That is also symbolic reference, because Deven is a Hindi teacher. Now he will look after the Urdu poetry. So this is the condition of the Urdu poetry now. If Urdu will survive in India, it will be survived by the Hindi people. If they like to retain this poetry, if they like to stay with this Urdu condition, then only Urdu will survive, because no Urdu people will care for their own customs, for their own language, because they are selling away their identity. So this is also a symbolic references. There are so many. So I am giving you just some references here. You can prepare it. Another important conditions, miserable condition of Urdu language, male. Throughout my discussion, you can find it, so I am not going to discuss it. Another important, male and female characters are very important. Two female characters are highly contrasting, and you have to prepare it. One is Shorola, the wife of Deven, and another is second wife of Noor. These two characters representing the feminism of the novel. One is highly dominated, very shy, timid lady, that is a wife of Deven. She just submits herself. She sacrifices everything. She cannot raise her voice, just like the conditions of the other lady. but she has an aspirations of being rich, have a good shopping, going to market, and to buy some good clothes, shoes for her sons. But on the other hand, Devin is totally indifferent about this, so he cannot afford these things, and there is a gap between these two people. Another important female character is the second wife of Noor. She is very ambitious, and she has a feministic creed. She one special things of her character is to point a war against the patriarchal dominations. So these things you have to prepare. Male characters also, Devan's character, Noor's characters, Murad's characters, all are highly important, which we need to discuss here. Then there I'm trying to, in the next this slide, there are I have pointed out some of the special features of Devan's characters. You just you just elaborate it, just these points. First thing, the central and pivotal character, he is very idealist, sufferer of identity crisis. Already I have discussed identity crisis, a beloved of Urdu poetry. These points also I have covered up. A cross-cultural person. You need to explain this cross-cultural person, because Devan is a Hindu person, and he is patronized under Urdu language. Now, he loves Urdu language. So, and he is also a Hindi teacher, but he wants Urdu language in him. He loves Urdu poetry. So there are cross-cultural things in Devan's character also. Tolerated persons, throughout the novel we have seen that so many crises comes to Devan's regarding his financial conditions, regarding the lost identity. Everything he is tolerating. He is polite, timid, and shy. He's struggling to preserve his love, passion, which is going to be extinct. This is regarding Urdu language, which I have already discussed, and cannot adjust with family properly, because he is not a domestic person who just take care of his family and have a shopping and good food. Just like he is not like that type of character. He is a character who has an aspirations, who is more than above his present condition. He is idealist. He has an aspiration to be a good poet. He wants to listen to ideal poetry. He wants to live in a world of nature, in a world of ideology, in a world of scholarship. So these are the things which you find regarding Devan's character. So he cannot properly adjust with family. He has some philosophic outlook in him, so he is careless about his family. Another thing of Devan's character, that this is the man of whom we can call, he is the man of custody. The entire Urdu language and Urdu poetry now in the custody of Devan. So he has that responsibility. So this is also another outlook of Devan's characters. And lastly, Devan's characters important thing which is very prominent, that is he is very poverty stricken man. Very small salary he get, he cannot afford everything for his family. So these are the things which you need to explain. I just quote some of the points here regarding Devan's character. You can prepare it. Next slide, I am going to discuss about the character of Noor Shahjahan Badi, who is the living legend of Urdu poetry shown in this novel. The character of Noor Shahjahan Badi is quite critical, and there are many contrasting things we find in him. One thing is that he is a living legend of Urdu poetry according to Devan, and so Devan's ideal hero is Noor Shahjahan Badi. Not only his ideal hero, he thinks that the Urdu poetry is actually in him. Another thing, his character is, he is very hopeless regarding the present society, that he believes, he has this disillusioned beliefs that Urdu language will not be survived in India. He has believed it. So nobody can protect this language. So the hopelessness has come in him. Another important thing in him, in his character, that is negative mind about the present society. And this negative mind comes regarding the surroundings, regarding the regarding the modern outlook of the society, where no persons is willing to listen to Urdu language, Urdu poetry. So nobody can preserve it. No colleges are there who are going to establish going to establish a Urdu department. So these things we find in him. All negativity makes him Epicurean drunkard. We find that throughout the novel, there are so many drinking scenes we have found, and most of the drinks took place in in particular care of Noor Sahajanwadi, and he is a Epicurean. That means he eats so much. He's a lover of food. Physical things comes in Noor Sahajanbadi's character: drinking, eating. So these things actually totally contrasting his ideology of poetry. A poet cannot be just like that. So there is also alienation effect, which I have noted earlier. uh, Hateful about present socio-political condition of India regarding Urdu language. So this is also I have noted. And a polygamer. I have noted it a polygamer because he had married two times. He had of first wife and he had second wife. So there are some glimpses of polygamy we find here regarding this poet. A symbolic representation of Urdu language. This point should be highlighted very much, because condition of Noor Sahajanbadi and the condition of present Urdu language in India is just like the same. So he is the symbolic representation of Urdu language. The abstract condition of the Urdu language in India is presented concretely through the character of Noor Sahajanbadi. So these things should be highlighted regarding the character of Noor Sahajanbadi. Character of Imtiaz Begum, that is the second wife of Noor, is a very important and bold lady, and a highly important lady regarding feminism. So these are some of the points I am taking here. You need to explain these points. The second wife of Noor, she is ambitious, she has a great feministic creed, exploiter of Noor's fame. That means she tries to steal Noor's poem, and she just propagate these poems as her own. So there is an exploitation. She is exploiting because she wants to be famous. On the other hand, she does not want that her husband should be famous. One of the most critical character of the text, it's very important critical character, because on the one hand she is the wife of Noor, and the other hand she is exploiting Noor. So she does not want that Noor become fame. And she has some poetic caliber. She can write some poetry, but she wants to be fame. On the Another important thing regarding the feministic creed, that she is put a contrasting thing, that if we analyze the Urdu poets and Urdu poetry, we find hardly any lady poet in Urdu poems. So in that thing, why there is no female or very little female Urdu poetess. Regarding this character is highly important. She is posing a domination, that there should be some female poetry. Why not there should be some female poetry? And she has the capability. If somebody reads it, she accuses Deben that he is only listening to Noor's poem, but he is not listening her poems. If he wants to write about her poem, he will be famous, and her poets has the caliber of that great poems of Urdu. But Deben directly refuses that. Just her poems has no such caliber. On the other hand, she is stealing Noor's poem. So there is this type of boldness we find. But when she does not want any meeting between Devan and Noor, because she very much has known that if that meeting takes place, all the poems of Noor will be out, and Noor will be famous again, once again, and her name will be buried. So she desperately tries to hide this Devan's meeting with suppress this meeting between Devan and Noor. So a contrast to patriarchal poetic tradition. So this is a contrast to patriarchal poetic tradition, because he wants to create a poetic tradition where poets will be the poet. So these are the things which you find regarding Imtiaz Begum's a highly feministic race. She is dominated lady. She wants to dominate. She has the beauty, she has the caliber of various things, but at last when she cannot do anything, she is desperate to destroy everything. So these things we find in Imtiaz Begum's characters. Other important points, students, to you need to prepare for your examinations, like just like description of the Mirpur, its contrast with past and present, the base of Indian social picture, the compare and contrast between Sharola Devan's wife and the Imtiaz Begum Noor's wife in terms of feminism. You have to prepare this type of contrast. One is timid, shy, another is bold, ambitious. So these things we have to create. One lady is only concentrating on her domestic households. On the other hand, one lady is concentrating to be a to become a very famous poetess. So these are the very much contrast there are you find. The condition of Indian economy in the field of education. One thing I have taken here, because of professor in college cannot afford to buy important things for his son, for his wife. So he find a very small type of salary being a lecturer in Urdu. So this is the condition of Indian economy in the field of education. Entire novel presented so much things, so many things, a very interesting grasping novel. Throughout the novel you find so many things: Indian culture, Indian society, pictorial description of the Indian towns, the description of the buses, the villages, the towns, the societies, mohallas, everything is there. The Hindu societies, the Muslim societies, and together we find the Indian and societies. So everything is there. You just read the entire novel and prepare these topics for your examination. I have just quoted here important quotation regarding when first meeting held between Devan and Noor Shahajan Badi, when Devan is asked by Noor why he has come here, and Devan just told him that I have come here for the sake of Urdu poetry. And then Noor says, Urdu poetry? How can there be Urdu poetry where there is no Urdu language left? It is dead, finished. The defeat of the Mughals by the British threw a noose over its head, and the defeat of the British by the Hindi wallahs tightened it. So now you see its corpse lying here waiting to be buried. So highly symbolical quotation I just put it. So that is my education elite channel. You just subscribe it, and I will try in my next video to bring for you another important topic to be discussed. This is my channel Education Elite. You can subscribe it, put the bell button, and get the updations. So here with me throughout the channel. So thanking you for watching. Have a good day. Thank you.